What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, an entire report was published going over game sales for the month of March, and it shows the Switch 2 going absolutely crazy, and I think most people know why, but we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony and age verification, as yes, it is starting to pop up in different regions for the system. And Ecco the Dolphin. We discussed previously how it looked like it was making a comeback. Now that we have more details and actually a way for you to play the game right now in your browser, all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Guys, we're every weekday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, going over the world of gaming news, trying to keep you up to date. So even if you don't get a notification in the morning, just know there's probably a video here to check out. And we're gonna start today, once again, with Microsoft and Game Pass as they continue to explore ways to just make it seem more valuable. And now it looks like another partnership is being explored. This we can see over on X from Discord, just saying soon TM, and it has Discord and Xbox Game Pass. They are quote tweeting Asha Sharma, who says for years Xbox and Discord have worked together to make it easier for players to connect, chat, and play across devices. We're teaming up again as we continue to make Game Pass more flexible for our players. Some of you might start to see some code in the wild, and I guess you just wanted to let people know because that has been getting out there. And I don't know, I guess there's Discord Nitro, maybe they tie that in to Game Pass. I'm sure they have data that shows that yes, people do use Discord on Xbox, as that is like a feature set that they have. I wonder how many people would see just additional, I mean, it is additional value if there's no extra cost for Game Pass. I wonder if people would look at Game Pass and go, oh, well, Discord Nitro's part of that, so I definitely have to sign up. But again, if it's just more, I guess just more content and features being added onto the already existing Game Pass that you may have now, it's like, yeah, it's just more benefits, I guess, for the same amount of money. Also, way back in the day now, during the 6th generation, there was a game called iNinja, and I always thought it was an interesting 3D platforming game that, I mean, that's what we got a lot of back then when they made that jump from the PS1 and the N64 up to the PS2, the GameCube, and the Xbox. But it turns out there was a sequel that was in development, at least far enough along to where there is gameplay footage out there, and we can see some of it here. Now, this was shared over on Games That Weren't. They have an entire write-up about this, by the way, saying they provided this 20-second or so clip from an anonymous contributor, a previously unseen clip of the game in action, you can see, showing an underground cavern level, collecting coins, killing a few enemies. And there's no real playable builds that are known to exist at this time. But to be honest, I didn't really know that there was even a sequel that was in development for iNinja. It always just seemed like that standalone game to me. And I mean, it obviously never came to fruition. It was canceled, whatever state it was in then. But I always look back on that as just, I don't know, it technically didn't seem that different from all the 3D. There were a lot of 3D platformers back then that were attempted. But for me, it was just one that I always remember. And when I go back and do emulation videos, you've probably seen it. I've actually used that game as an example for things like the PS2 or the GameCube. So, I don't know, just interesting. I saw this pop up. Thought it'd be a lot of fun to go over. Oh, and while Control Resonant is coming up this year, it appears that Remedy has decided to move Control over to maybe a slightly unexpected platform. We can see this is over on their social media account saying Control Ultimate Edition is now on iPhone and iPad. So they have the touch controls, reworked interface, and gameplay systems. They say it's great on smaller screens while retaining the intensity and unpredictability of the original. Okay, so it's on the App Store, iPhone, iPad, and Mac. I mean, I'll admit I'm a little curious more and more now than ever with these M series chips on these different Apple devices to how exactly they react and perform with some of these games that, I mean, look, not long ago, Control was used as just a benchmark title for new GPUs as they came out, and now we're seeing it playable on the iPhone. So yes, mobile phone gaming has come a long way, being able to play some of these big AAA titles that are like stress tests at times for different systems. So let me know if you had a chance to check out Control on your iPhone or iPad. I am genuinely curious to see where it sits with frame rate and visual effects, the whole thing. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Circana sales results for the month of March, and this would cover game sales in the US. Some caveats here and there depending on the publisher, the platform holder, if they are sharing digital sales alongside of physical sales. But this was the month, of course, that Pacopia came out. We saw how that was just massive during the month of March, so you figure it's going to drive sales of the Switch 2, and indeed, it did. So like we can see some of the results here. This was shared by Matt Piscatella over on his social media account, and then it was also compiled into a massive thread over on Stallbase forum. But we'll start at the top here with some of the hardware stats. Now, overall hardware for March grew 69% over March of last year, and you guessed it, the Switch 2 drove the majority of the revenue gains massively up. Obviously, there's no Switch 2 last March as versus like the Switch 1 that was really struggling along there to the finish line before the Switch 2 came out. But the PS5 was also technically up 3% in terms of revenue gained over March of last year. The Switch 2, though, now is ahead of the Switch 1 sales pace by 12%. So that would be for each of the system's first 10 months. So I mean, we'll see. I do think the Switch 1 is eventually going to pass the Switch 2 because the Switch 1, as it went along, did eventually go into that time where it was the pandemic was going on. People were inside buying a lot of systems. Remember, we saw the Switch 1 even getting scalped by resellers around that point. So it was hard to find a Switch 1 because they were all selling. Still, though, the Switch 2 is the best-selling console for March. That's hard, like just console number of consoles sold and overall revenue. And we even got, interestingly enough, some fairly transparent data that was getting shared around showing the Switch 2 had sold 568,000 units in March. That is more than January and February combined. We can also take a look at, we'll say, the top 10 here for the March 2026, the US best-selling games, with MLB The Show 26 came in at number 1. Then Resident Evil Requiem, that dropped from 1 down to 2. By the way, Resident Evil Requiem still leading the way for the year, just outright, like overall for all games in the US. WWE 2K26 was 3. Marathon was 4. All right, so that's actually not bad. You know, like coming in the 4th slot there. We're still trying to figure out where we are with Marathon, and the people, of course, tracking the number of players that are logged in at any one time. It is going to come down to more, I think, keeping the audience as opposed to how many copies they sold out of the gate, you know, like the first month. Still, though, we have right below that Pokemon Pocopia. Remember, this does not count digital sales because Nintendo does not share them. This is a game key card, and I do think the game key card stuff, while it's not a massive number, I think there are some out there who are just like, I'll get it digitally. Like, I do think that's a thing where they're just kind of pushed to the digital side because they see game key card on the front of that box. Call of Duty Black Ops 7 was number 6. Then we have Monster Hunter Stories 3, Twisted Reflection at 7, NBA 2K26 at 8, Minecraft at 9, and then EA Sports FC 26 at 10. I do want to point out that Crimson Desert was number 15, and probably because digital sales were not counted for this one, so that's kind of interesting. I'm not really sure why that's the case because we know how Nintendo is with this whole thing, but interesting that Crimson Desert, I guess, follows along with that for Pearl Abyss. Still, though, it's what we expected. Pokemon Pocopia heavily pushed Switch 2 systems for the month of March. We already saw this playing out in Japan, but it's just more confirmation here in the US, and I'm going to be very curious to see what Nintendo has to report with their investors briefing. They'll put their report out for the entire fiscal year that ended ended March 31st, the new one starting April 1st. Nintendo will be going over all of that, including Pocopia sales up to that point. That'll be in the first 10 days or so in May, so we're not too far off, a few weeks from that. But it seems like the Switch 2 back out in front here to start 2026 in the month of March with a massive, massive push, more than 500,000 units selling just in that month alone in the US. Next up, let's talk about Sony and age verification rolling out the different regions for the PlayStation 5. And this has been a hot button topic because age verification, of course, means you have to give a set amount of information to, in this case, the platform holder, but the company in general, all right? And this is working in for all kinds of stuff right now, not just video game companies and systems and platforms. Some are wondering, okay, operating systems? Yeah, it's getting to that level, and different requirements based on the company for how far you have to go to verify your age, but we can see. This is over on PlayStation Universe, saying Sony has started rolling out PlayStation age verification in regions such as the UK and Ireland, with multiple users having already been asked to verify their age in order to access specific content. Okay, so there's a few methods for how you can do this. You can do the facial scan. That sounds like a great idea. You can supply your ID, or you can use your mobile phone number. I mean, out of the three, the mobile phone number, I assume most people would just default to that. I do wonder how long that's even going to be available for. We'll see. But while it is currently optional, age verification will be required beginning in June 2026. So what happens if you do not want to go through this process? Well, you can still use your PlayStation. Like, that's not necessarily off the table. In fact, you can still go on the PlayStation Store and buy games and play them and stuff, but there are going to be some things you'll be limited to. So, for example, you won't be able to use voice or text chat, messaging, third-party communication tools. That does include Discord, and you won't be able to access YouTube or Twitch, use those platforms. So it will be pretty limited just in terms of communication on the PlayStation. I mean, I guess that's the biggest thing that policymakers are pushing for or pointing to in order to get to the age verification requirements and methods of facial scans and ID submissions, which, I mean, we've seen what's happened with some of these big companies where we read these headlines as like, this company's been hacked and 50,000 accounts have been compromised. And once they start collecting photo IDs or facial scans of people, I mean, you're going to have hacking groups really feel like, oh, okay, now the data is completely worth going after. Absolutely. Now it's like we should invest heavily to try to get this because we've already seen the ransomware attacks that happen. And I do think it's one thing when a company has some of their trade secrets or those slides they have in the conference room for revenue figures and stuff, when that gets stolen, or even just plans for video games they have coming up. It's like, okay, sure. But when they go, hey, we have tens of thousands of IDs that you've been storing, all of a sudden, I think many customers and people are like, hold on, maybe you should think about paying that ransom that they're asking for. And that, of course, is the thing. We've seen Sony get hacked multiple times. We've seen this happen with Microsoft, and like, it's not uncommon, I guess. So that's one of the things people are like, well, we don't want to give them the ID with all of our information on it. So at least for now, phone number, but not exactly working in the right direction when it comes to privacy online. And based on the way a lot of governments and regulators are moving right now, something tells me this is just the beginning. Next up, we have Yoshi and the Mysterious Book with previews going live. And I went through a few of these. It was kind of coming back to the same thing over and over again, just based on about 2 hours, it sounded like, that some of these different outlets had a chance to play the game. And it's coming out next month anyway. I mean, May 21st, so we're not that far off. But it did sound like kind of what I was expecting with the game, sort of. So I'll go over some of the things that were mentioned here. And Nintendo Life also had a pretty good roundup of some of the quotes and things that were being said about Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. But the big one here, obviously, to me, it's a visually striking game. I mean, it definitely is a unique looking title. You're not going to see a look like this really anywhere else. And that's kind of the thing to me that's sort of defined a lot of these Yoshi games, Crafted World, Woolly World, even Yoshi's Island back in the day on the Super Nintendo. I'd look at it and be like, okay, yeah, that stands out. Or like among all the games around it. Yes. So, I mean, in that case, I would say it's an A+ there. But Yoshi does explore a mysterious book, go figure, and you jump between the different pages for the levels. It does, though, play more like a puzzle game than maybe a traditional action platformer. Some mentioned that there was no damage at all when they played through the I guess the couple of hours that they did. So there wasn't really any danger necessarily that was experienced in the game. And the creatures you come across, they do give you different abilities as opposed to Yoshi themselves getting like power-ups or anything. It is definitely a more laid-back game, however, as it was being described over and over and over again. So I'm kind of expecting this to be an easier game. I didn't see anything, by the way, mentioned of a multiplayer element to it. Not that maybe Nintendo doesn't reveal something right up against launch, but kind of seems like maybe you'll pass the controller off with a younger gamer maybe that would want to play through this with you. So that's kind of the audience that I'm looking at here. Like, the kids are interested because, look, you see that we saw the Mario Galaxy movie. Nintendo knows what they're doing. They introduced Yoshi there. The kids are all excited about Yoshi. Oh yeah, here comes this Yoshi game. And they're like, we got to get the Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. So, I mean, again, Nintendo working their movie stuff into their games. It looks like one that I do think will be fun for people who enjoy more laid-back 2D platformers that have that distinctive look to it. But I do think it's going to be geared more towards the younger gamer, and nothing wrong with that. That's just kind of how Nintendo is rolling here with Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, but look towards that next month when it releases May 21st. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Ecco the Dolphin, because there's a new collection that's been announced, and something else that I thought was kind of cool over on the official website that's been launched, something you can play actually right now. even if you're at work. Okay, so let's take a look. This is part of the press release that they issued here, saying Ecco the Dolphin Complete includes all versions of Ecco the Dolphin and Ecco the Tides of Time, the original immutable games from the early 90s, preserved and freely explorable. Alongside the classics, a brand new contemporary Ecco game extends the journey into the modern era, weaving the history of the franchise together into a single, unified experience. It does feature built-in speedrunning support, achievements, and leaderboards. It says MetaQuests span across the original games and the new contemporary title, creating challenges that thread through the entire Ecco universe. That's interesting. So they're going to tie all, okay, so this is going to be a collection of games. They're going to tie everything sort of together between them. Custom courses let players and creators chart their own path through any combination of levels from any games in the franchise and share them with the community. This seems like a lot more than I was expecting when they're like, oh yeah, we're going to do like a remaster collection of these games. This sounds like legit. They're completely rebuilding parts of it so that they interact with each other. Interesting. Okay. Well, if you also go over on the Ecco the Dolphin website, eccothedolphin.com, and you go to the top, there's like 3 little bars there. Click that and then click game. It'll actually launch Ecco the Dolphin from that I played on the Sega Genesis right there in your web browser. And on the bottom left, it has like the control scheme, so you can check that out. I didn't try connecting a controller to my computer to then remap the buttons. I assume it can because it's just detecting inputs for, in my case, through something like Chrome or Firefox. So then you'd be able to play just Ecco the Dolphin right then and there. I thought that was a really fun touch just to have that on the website. Like, hey, you can play it right now, just freely available. So I guess, yeah, if you're at work and you're finishing up listening to this, you can go play Ecco the Dolphin on what kind of seemed like some sketchy keyboard controls there on the fly. I mean, it worked. I jumped way out of the ocean and things started going crazy. So I was able to navigate enough there, but it was just really fun to see Ecco the Dolphin back in the news and actual games coming out soon, along with one you can play right now. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, are you picking up Yoshi and the Mysterious Book? Okay, 54% not interested. There you go. Then 36% say maybe later if there's a sale. 10% say yes, buying it ASAP. And I will admit, because the kids are so interested in it, and it's fun to find a game that they are all of them like all in on. And again, shout out to the Mario Galaxy movie for making that happen. Hey, maybe it'll also get them interested in Star Fox, that game, when that gets announced hopefully soon next week. And it should. Coming out of the movie, it was like, who do you really like out of that movie? It was Yoshi and Fox McCloud. So we got the Yoshi game. They're excited about that. Hopefully they're also excited about this new Star Fox game, and we get them like started off on the right track immediately, gravitating towards Star Fox. And I mean, yeah, Yoshi. I mean, they like Mario and stuff too, but like, let's get them on board with Star Fox. Let's get that franchise moving again. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Fanboy, who says, Toei Games should finally give us a proper Sailor Moon RPG video game. Okay, so I remember back in the day, all right, make like reproduction carts for the Super Nintendo, and it'd be fun to do that because you could play the games on actual hardware. Of course, we had flash carts that became really big, so you can just pop the SD card and go from there. But the one that I remember was requested quite frequently was the Sailor Moon RPG on the Super Famicom that did get the English translation, so you could play through it completely in English. I think it was Sailor Moon Another Story. So if you're curious, you can, I'm sure, go find the ROM pretty easily that's already being translated. And it was actually a pretty interesting 16-bit RPG, but that would actually be kind of interesting to see them attempt that. Like, I'm picturing how we had that One Piece, the One Piece RPG that came out somewhat recently. Something like that, right? Along those lines. I don't think I would go too crazy or break the bank for it. I would just be interested to see if a Sailor Moon themed RPG like that would be able to make some kind of impact in gaming. Like, would people really look at that and go, oh yeah, I'm absolutely picking it up? Does Sailor Moon still have that kind of like movement just in general? I don't know, I'd like to see it, but at least for now, it seems like Toei is going towards original new games, so at least not for now with Sailor Moon. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here on a card. Or maybe you want to hear how Nintendo is getting sued by gamers and why exactly that's happening. I went over that in a video, and I'll leave it right below. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.